What would you do if I told you that the moment those red and blue lights flash in your rearview mirror, a countdown has already started, a 10-second countdown? And if you don't know the rule, you don't just lose the ability to fight the ticket. You lose your case, you lose your leverage, and you hand the prosecution everything they need on a silver platter. Right now, something is happening in 90% of traffic stops that most people don't even realize is self-sabotage. You've probably done it yourself. I know you have. And here's the question I want you to answer in the comments right now, honestly. When you get pulled over, what is the very first thing you do? Do you reach for your license? Do you start explaining yourself? Do you put your hands on the wheel? Stop. Pause. Think about it. Because whatever you just thought of, there's a very high chance it's the wrong move. Most people believe that being polite and cooperative is the only way out of a ticket. And that's true for a normal conversation. But a traffic stop isn't a conversation. It's an evidence-gathering procedure disguised as small talk. And the first 10 seconds? That's not about safety. That's about establishing dominance, building probable cause, and locking you into a story you can't escape from. What most drivers treat like a routine inconvenience, a lawyer sees as the single most fragile moment of your entire case. My name is Channel Name, and I've spent years analyzing body cam footage, court transcripts, and police training manuals. Not to tell you how to be rude to an officer. That gets you arrested. I'm going to show you how to be legally silent while appearing completely cooperative. Stay with me because this next part matters more than anything you say after the 10-second mark. Here is the mistake that ruins everything. It happens before the officer even opens their mouth. You roll down your window and you start talking. You say, "I know I was speeding," or "Sorry, I didn't see that sign." Or worse, "Is everything okay, officer?" That last one sounds innocent. But from a legal standpoint, you just opened the door to a fishing expedition. Because "Is everything okay?" invites the officer to look for things that aren't okay. You just ask them to inspect you, and they will. But the real killer is the apology, the excuse, the explanation. Because here's the psychological trap that almost nobody sees coming. Anything you say in the first 10 seconds of a traffic stop is not being heard by a human being who wants to let you off with a warning. It is being recorded by a human witness who is legally allowed to lie to you, but who is simultaneously building a sworn statement against you. That's not paranoia, that's case law. Let me give you a real example. A driver gets pulled for going 40 in a 30. Officer approaches. Driver immediately says, "I'm sorry, I didn't see the sign change." Sounds harmless, right? Wrong. In court, the officer testifies the driver admitted they did not see the sign, indicating a lack of attention to roadway conditions. That one sentence upgrades a simple speeding ticket into reckless operation in some jurisdictions. Why? Because you provided the mental state. You told them you weren't paying attention. If you had said nothing, all they have is the radar. That's fightable. But your own words? That's a confession. Bad way. Good way. Smart move. The bad way is to fill the silence. The good way is to wait. The smart move is to understand why silence is actually your loudest defense. Most people think staying quiet makes you look guilty. That's a myth perpetuated by TV shows and bad advice from your uncle who watches too much news. Police officers are trained to expect nervous drivers. They expect chatter. They expect excuses. What they don't expect is a calm person who knows exactly when to speak and exactly when to stop. So let me break down the first 10 seconds the way a defense attorney would want you to run them. Second one, you see the lights, you signal, you pull to a safe location. That's fine. Second 2 through 5, you turn off the engine, you roll down your window all the way, not halfway, not a crack, all the way. You turn on your interior light if it's dark. You place both hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, and then you do nothing. You don't reach for your glove box. You don't fumble for your wallet. You don't look in the rearview mirror to watch the officer approach. You sit. You wait. You breathe. Now here's where 99% of people break the pattern. The officer walks up. They say, "Good evening. Do you know why I pulled you over?" And the driver's brain short circuits. You've been conditioned your whole life to answer direct questions. But this question is a trap disguised as politeness. Because if you say, "No, I don't know," you look unaware. If you say, "Yes, I was speeding," you just confessed. So what do? This is the part nobody talks about. You don't answer the question, but you don't ignore them either. You look them in the eye. You smile slightly, not a nervous grin, a calm acknowledgement. And you say this, "Officer, I'd like to respectfully remain silent while I exercise my right to counsel. Here are my license, registration, and insurance." And then you hand over the documents. That's it. That's the entire script. But wait, you just told them you're remaining silent while handing over documents? Yes, because here's the psychological insight that changes everything. Police officers are not confused by this statement. They have heard it before from drivers who have consulted lawyers. What confuses them is inconsistency. What frustrates them is arguing. What they respect, or at least cannot fight, is a calm, polite, legally accurate invocation of rights that does not obstruct their investigation. Let me be brutally honest with you. That line will not get you out of every ticket. but it will stop you from making the one mistake that turns a fixable citation into an unfixable criminal charge. Because here's what most drivers don't understand. A traffic stop is not about the traffic violation. The traffic violation is the excuse to stop you. The real investigation begins after the stop, and the officer is looking for signs of impairment, nervousness, inconsistency, or anything that elevates a civil infraction into a probable cause arrest. And your mouth? Your mouth is their best evidence. Think about every body cam video you've ever seen where a simple stop turns into a car search, a K9 unit, and handcuffs. It almost never starts with the officer being aggressive. It starts with the driver volunteering information. I'm coming from a friend's house. I just had 1 beer 2 hours ago. You can search the car. I have nothing to hide. Stop. Right there. That's the moment the case dies. Because once you give consent, you cannot take it back. And once you mention alcohol, even to deny it, you have introduced the topic. Here's a specific psychological trigger that very few people know about. When an officer asks, "Have you been drinking?" and you say, "No, I haven't had anything," you might think you're denying, but legally you just made a statement that can be compared to your physical appearance. If your eyes are red from allergies, the officer can testify that your statement was inconsistent with your appearance. That's not a lie. That's their perception. And juries trust officers. They don't trust drivers. So what's the right way? The right way is to politely decline to answer. "Officer, I'm not going to discuss that without my attorney present." That's not an admission. That's a boundary. And boundaries are what separate a driver who understands their rights from a driver who gets convicted on their own words. I want you to imagine 2 different drivers pulled over for the exact same violation. Same time of night, same location, same officer. Driver A rolls down the window, starts apologizing, explains where they're going, answers every question, and volunteers that they only had 1 beer. Driver B hands over documents, invokes silence politely, and says nothing else. Which one gets the field sobriety test? Which one gets the breathalyzer? Which one's body cam footage makes them look calm versus guilty? You already know the answer. And that's the entire point. But here's where I need you to pause and really feel this. The fear you have of being perceived as rude or uncooperative. That fear is the weapon being used against you. Police officers are counting on your social conditioning. They are counting on the fact that you were raised to respect authority and answer questions. They are not bad people for doing this. It's their job. But your job is to protect your own legal future. And you cannot protect something if you hand away the keys in the first 10 seconds. So let me give you the exact 3-sentence protocol that lawyers tell their own families to use. I'm not guessing. This comes directly from defense attorney training materials. When the officer asks why they pulled you over, you say nothing about the violation. You say, "I understand you're doing your job, officer. I am not going to discuss the facts of this stop. Here are my documents." That's it. Polite, clear, legally bulletproof. And if they press you, if they say, "Why won't you tell me why I stopped you?" you do not engage. You repeat, "I'm choosing to remain silent, officer. Am I free to leave?" That last question is magic. Because if they say no, you are detained, and they need reasonable suspicion. If they say yes, you drive away. Either way, you regain control of the interaction. Now, here's the uncomfortable truth that most YouTube videos won't tell you. None of this guarantees you won't get a ticket. You might still get a citation. But a citation is a piece of paper. A case is a legal battle. And the difference between paying a fine and beating a charge is almost always what you said in the first 10 seconds. Once the words leave your mouth, no lawyer can unsay them. Not me. Not a high-priced defense attorney. Not a miracle. Those words are on the recording forever. So here's my final question for you, and I genuinely want you to answer in the comments. Have you ever said something during a traffic stop that you immediately regretted? Be honest. Because the first step to fixing this mistake is admitting that you've been playing a rigged game without knowing the rules. And now you know. The question is whether you'll remember the next time those lights flash in your mirror. The countdown starts now. 10 seconds. Don't speak. Don't explain. Don't apologize. Hand over the documents, invoke your silence, and let the officer do the only thing they can legally do, write the ticket, or let you go. But do not, under any circumstances, hand them the case against you on a silver platter made of your own words. Stay safe, stay smart, and I'll see you in the next one.